Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to continue talking about our Kettlebell Nerd Math, specifically the transition from our volume cycle into our density cycle for the kettlebell snatch. So in a previous video, we had talked about our volume cycle, and we had increased the volume of work to increase our work capacity with a known weight. Kettlebells are fixed weights. We can't micro load them, so we have to do fancy math in order to make sure that we are progressing with each movement. Each movement has its own math. The volume cycle is pretty standard. We start with 4 sets of 5 on each side, and that gives us a total volume output of 40 total reps each day, 20 left, 20 right equals 40. We build that up to doing 20 total sets inside of 20 minutes with 5 on the left, 5 on the right, and that gives us a total volume of 100 reps on the left and 100 reps on the right. So this is volume. The intensity stays the same, the volume changes by adding sets with a known weight. After we finish our volume cycle, we can have 3 options. We can either do a density cycle, we can go heavier and start over, or we can add complexity. Let's talk about the density cycle. The density cycle is where we start to change our intensity. The point of the volume cycle is to increase our work capacity, keep the intensity the same so that we can adapt and become more efficient. The problem for most people when it comes to kettlebells is their joint structure. Kettlebells are traction. They pull on the joints, they pull on the hand, and they tend to beat people up quite a bit if they are not used to doing traction movements. In the real world, the world is full of traction. Every time you pick up a hay bale on the farm or a bale of shingles, if you're a carpenter, there is traction in that movement. So in the real world, we're always dealing with traction, but not everybody is trained to deal with traction. So the volume cycle deals with that. In our density cycle, we take the same amount of work and we make it more intense. The smallest unit that we can change is 1 unit of intensity. We can go from 5 reps on the left and 5 reps on the right to 6 reps on the left and 6 reps on the right. In order to keep our volume the same, we're still at about 100 reps on each side. We take it from that 20 reps to 16 reps. And this is pretty simple. We take 16 and we multiply it by 6, and that gives us 96 reps on each side. We could go and add a set with the remainder on it, but I'm just lazy and I've cut that part out because once people get through their 16 sets of 6, they tend to not want to do another set of 4 just to make it up. You could put the set of 4 at the beginning as a warm-up if you wanted to keep the volume exactly the same, but I kind of like the fact that the volume varies within, what's that, 1/20th, because that allows there to be a slight wave over the course of the training. The next thing we would do is we change our intensity 1 unit on the left and 1 unit on the right. We go from 6 to 7 on each side. 14 times 7 is 98 on each side. So once again, we are close to our desired volume of 100 left and 100 right. And then we change 1 unit. 12 sets of 8 and 8 gives us 96 and 96 again. You could, of course, fill in your remainder sets. 11 sets of 9 is 99 on each side, and 10 sets of 10 is back to our 100 on each side. The difference is these are all still EMOMs. This was 20 sets in 20 minutes, 1 set every minute on the minute. This was 16 sets, 14, 12, 11, and 10. So what happened between these 2 points, you did the same amount of work in half the amount of time, which makes it at least 2 times harder. And that is a very predictable and simple way to improve our athletic ability in a short period of time with 1 piece of equipment. It's always the math that's going to determine a good training program. Without the math, you're just kind of guessing. And if you're guessing, you're not really going to get very far very quickly. Nobody built a 747 by guessing. They built a 747 by doing a bunch of math. The same thing is true of everything in the modern world. Math is what separates us from everything else. There are people who just train naturally and they set a timer and they just go, but that doesn't guarantee an outcome. If you're training on your own, you would like to guarantee an outcome. If you're a trainer, you would like to guarantee an outcome for your clients. All this becomes super important. Normally, our 10 sets of 10 and 10 is a stopping point, and then you would have 2 options. You would go back and you would either add weight, which is usually the preferred thing, get stronger, or add more complexity. You could also continue to density, but I find that after 10 sets of 10 on each side, it's better just to go up in weight, because going up in weight will teach you something else about what's wrong with your technique, something about the way your hand moves. Maybe you're not straightening your arm all the way. Maybe you could pack your shoulder harder. Heavier weights expose weaknesses in your technique. So after this section, then I would like you to go heavier in weight or add that complexity. But I don't recommend going up in the density for snatches right now. There are other ways that you will do to jump into time under tension as opposed to rep counting, and they diverge into two separate forms of training right here. Density changes our intensity. More time under tension each time. That is hard on most people, so most people spend most of their time developing volume cycles. If you do a volume cycle with, say, a 16, a 20, and a 24, then you could jump back and then density the 16 after that. All of these are Lego bricks, and you put them all on a wall and you figure out which one you're going to do when based on what resources you have. It is always, always, always an engineering equation. If people start to do the density cycle and their hands start to fall apart, then you stop the density cycle and you would go back to a volume cycle with a different weight or different complexity. Keeping your body from falling apart is very important. If your body falls apart or you get injured or you rip all the skin off your hands, then you take time away from training. The nerd math part is always trying to get you to spend more days training and less time injured.